My name is Adaeze Nwosu, and I want to tell you about the night I was 7 years old and I sat alone at our kitchen table and I wrote my first letter. I did not know, sitting there with my careful 7-year-old handwriting and the paper I had torn from the back of my school notebook, that I would still be writing that letter 25 years later, that it would become the thing I did every year, quietly, privately, on the same date without telling anyone. That by the time I was 32, there would be a box under my bed with 32 of them inside, all sealed, all addressed to the same person, all carrying the same question at their center, even when the words around the question changed. I did not know any of that. I was 7. I knew only that there was something I needed to say and no one to say it to, and the paper was there. So I wrote. His name is Chukwuemeka Nwosu. He is my father. He left our house in Enugu on a morning in March when I was 7 years old, and he did not come back. I want to be precise about this because precision matters when you're talking about a thing that shaped everything. He did not die. He did not disappear in the way of people who are taken against their will. He made a choice. He packed what he needed and he left, and he did not return. My mother explained it to me carefully, in the specific language of mothers who are trying to give their children just enough truth to hold on to without breaking them. She said, "Your father has gone to find something." She said, "It does not mean he does not love you." She said, "Some people are not made for staying, and that is not your fault." I heard all of this. I nodded in all the right places, and then I went to my room and I got the paper and I wrote, "Dear Daddy, it is me, Adaeze. Where did you go? I miss you. Please come home." I drew a picture of our house because I wanted him to know what it looked like without him in it. I folded the paper. I put it in an envelope. I did not have an address, so I wrote his name on the front in my largest, most careful letters, and I put it in the drawer beside my bed. That was the first one. Now I want to ask you something before I go any further. Have you ever had something you needed to say to someone who was not available to hear it? Not just a person who was difficult or distant, a person who was simply gone, in whatever way gone means for your particular story. And if you have, what did you do with the words? Where did they go when they had nowhere to go? Tell me in the comments, because I think the answer to that question, what you do with words that have nowhere to go, tells you more about who you are than almost anything else. I wrote the second letter on his birthday the following year. I do not remember deciding to write on his birthday. It seems like something that simply happened and then became the pattern. His birthday is the 14th of September. Every year on the 14th of September, I found paper and I wrote. The letters changed as I changed. This is the thing about keeping something for 25 years. It becomes a document, not of the person you are writing to, but of yourself. Each letter is a timestamp, a record of where I was and what I understood and what I was still trying to understand. The 8-year-old letter was an account of the year. Here is what happened at school. Here is what Mama cooked for Christmas. Here is the thing my friend Chisom said that made me laugh for an hour. Here is what I wished you had been there for. The accounting of a child who had not yet given up on the idea that the gap could be filled if she provided enough detail. The 11-year-old letter was quieter, less detail, more questions. Why did you go? Was it something about me? Was it something about our house? Was there something that would have made you stay that I could have done or been or said? The questions of a child who had started to understand that the leaving was a decision and was trying, with the limited tools of an 11-year-old mind, to understand what went into it. The 13-year-old letter was the first angry one. I remember writing it. I remember the particular quality of the anger. Not hot, not explosive, but cold and specific and very certain of itself. I wrote, "You chose to leave. I do not care what the reasons were. You chose it. And every day since then has been a day you chose not to be there for. I count the days. I have been counting since March." I sealed that one very firmly. Let me tell you what those years looked like from the outside, because this is important. The inside and the outside of a person are not always the same place, and the distance between them is where a lot of the real story lives. From the outside, I was fine, more than fine. I was the kind of child that teachers described as mature for her age, which is a thing people say about children who have learned to carry their weight quietly. I did well in school, I had friends, I laughed at appropriate moments. I was helpful to my mother, who was working 2 jobs and did not need another problem, so I made sure not to be one. I built myself, in the years after he left, with the particular thoroughness of someone who understands that no one is coming to build it for them. Not with bitterness, I want to be clear about that. It was not a bitter building, it was just a very self-reliant one. Every skill, every achievement, every version of myself that became capable of something new, I built it alone, from the inside, without a template from the person who was supposed to provide one. And every year on the 14th of September, I sat down and I wrote. By the time I was 20, I was studying public health at university, and the letters had become something I did the way you do the things that are woven into your year, automatically, without examining too closely why you do them. I wrote about university, about the friends I was making and the ideas I was encountering, and the version of the future I was beginning to be able to imagine. I wrote about what I was learning, about who I was becoming. I noticed, writing those letters, that I was better at describing myself to him than I was at describing myself to anyone else, that the page had become the place where I was most honest, where I said the things that were true without editing them for an audience, because he was not an audience, he was an absence, and you can say anything to an absence. I want to stop here and ask you something. Is there someone in your life, present or absent, alive or not, to whom you are more honest than you are to anyone else? A journal, a letter, a conversation you have only in your own head? And do you ever wonder what that honesty is telling you about what you need that you are not yet giving yourself? Drop your answer in the comments, because what I found at 32, reading 25 years of letters, was that the person I had been most honest with was myself, and I had been disguising that honesty as letters to someone else. The question appeared for the first time in the letter I wrote at 15. I do not know where it came from, it simply arrived on the page, as questions sometimes do when you have been circling them for long enough without naming them. The question was, do you think about me? 5 words, sitting at the end of a paragraph about something else entirely, as if they had been waiting there and had finally gotten tired of waiting. Do you think about me? I looked at those words for a long time after I wrote them, and then I folded the letter and sealed the envelope and put it in the box with the others, and did not think about it again until I was sitting on my bedroom floor at 32, reading all of them in one sitting, and I reached that letter and found the question sitting there exactly as I had left it. Do you think about me? And I understood, reading it at 32 in a way I had not been able to understand at 15, what the question was really asking. Not whether he thought about me, whether I was worth thinking about, whether the fact of me, Adaeze Nwosu, this specific person, this life, was something that registered in the consciousness of someone who had seen me and then chosen to leave. It was not a question about him. It had never been a question about him. It was a question of my own worth, addressed outward to someone who was gone, because addressing it inward to myself was too frightening. I sat on my bedroom floor with that 15-year-old letter in my hands, and I felt something that I can only describe as the sensation of a knot being untied. Not painlessly, but completely. Let me tell you about the Sunday in March when it all came out. I was cleaning my bedroom. The box was under the bed and I moved it to vacuum, and then I sat down beside it and I did not get up for 3 hours. I opened the first letter, 7 years old, the picture of the house with the gap where a person should be. I sat with it for 5 minutes, and then I kept going. I read all 32 in order, from the 7-year-old who drew pictures to the 31-year-old who wrote in careful professional sentences about a life that was full and functioning and missing something she could no longer precisely name. What I found was not what I expected to find. I expected grief. I found something more complicated and more useful than grief. I found a portrait, 25 years of a person growing up, drawn by that person's own hand, addressed to someone who would never see it. I found the angry 13-year-old who knew, with a clarity that her older self sometimes lost, exactly what had been done and exactly what it cost. I found the 20-year-old who was becoming someone and was trying to share that becoming with a person who was not there to receive it. I found the question at 15 that had been the real question all along. And I found, woven through all of them, something I had not been looking for and had not expected. I found evidence of an extraordinary person. Not extraordinary in the dramatic sense, extraordinary in the sense of this person kept going. This person showed up every 14th of September for 25 years and did the work of putting what she could not say somewhere outside herself. This person was honest when honesty had no witness. This person did not give up on the possibility of connection even when connection was unavailable. This person built herself without a template and without an audience and without anyone watching, and then wrote about the building to someone who was not there and kept the letters in a box under the bed and kept going. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, extraordinary. And I had never told her so. I had never looked at myself and said, I see what you have been doing. I see the consistency of it. I see the courage of it, the specific courage of continuing to feel something for 25 years without allowing the feeling to harden into numbness. That takes more strength than most people understand, and you did it every year without anyone telling you to. I want to ask you something, and I need you to hear it fully before you move on. What is the thing you have been doing, quietly and consistently and without witnesses, that you have never given yourself credit for? Not the achievements that other people can see, the private, unglamorous, faithful thing, the showing up, the continuing, the refusing to let something die that matters to you, even when you have every reason to let it go. Tell me in the comments, because I think we are very good at seeing the extraordinary in other people and very bad at seeing it in ourselves. And I think what I found in that box applies to more people than just me. I put the letters back in the box when I finished reading them, all 32 in order, folded carefully. I slid the box back under the bed. And then I sat at my desk and I opened a new document on my computer, and I wrote a 33rd letter, not to him, to myself, to the 7-year-old at the kitchen table and the 13-year-old who was cold and certain in her anger and the 15-year-old who asked the question, and every version of myself that had sat down on the 14th of September for 25 years and done the work. I wrote, I see you. All of you, in every year, in every version. I see what you were doing, and I see what it cost, and I see what it built. The question you have been asking was never really a question for him. It was a statement you needed to make for yourself. So let me make it clearly, in writing, so it exists somewhere outside your own chest. You are worth thinking about. You were worth staying for. The fact that he did not stay is information about what he was able to do, not about what you are worth. Those are not the same thing. It took you 25 years to understand the difference. That is not too long. That is exactly how long it took. And the person you became while you were waiting for an answer that was never going to come from the place you were looking for it, that person is remarkable, built from the inside, without a template, without an audience, without anyone watching, built with honesty and patience and a faithfulness to feeling that most people lose much earlier than you did. I am glad you kept going. I am glad you kept writing. The letters were never for him. They were for this moment. This is the moment they were for. God was not making you wait. He was making sure you would be ready to receive what you had already given yourself when you finally looked at it clearly. You are ready now. Open the box. Read what is in it. It is you, and you are enough.